been posting it numerous times in the Facebook Live. SubhanAllah, Namer, we went right into full-blown discussion mode, and I think we have about 2 minutes or so before our next speaker, who you're going to introduce. But please tell people about yourself. We want to know who Namarek is.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone, again. I'm a nurse by background. I've worked in palliative care, which is helping people die comfortably at end of life. I've worked with in mental health and addictions, and I have also worked with the mental health population here in Toronto, Canada. So I'm sorry, with the homeless population, which has a lot of mental health and addictions as well. So homelessness is a very special place in my heart. If I can just share a small story with you all. The first time that I entered a shelter, I cried. I cried. I thought to myself, we live in a country like this and people live like this. SubhanAllah, a lot of us left our homes thinking we're coming to a home, right? We left our homeland for safety. And I came in here and I saw, Allahu Akbar, that people were living, like literally, there was a big hall and there were a bunch of like mattresses and some cots on the ground, and they were just sleeping there. And honestly, I just cried and I thanked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what we had. But I thought, man, do we have a responsibility? Because Islam, like Amira said, it's about social justice. Islam is not about living in our own bubble. It is about seeing around us too. It's about our neighbors, about our mothers, about everybody. Allahu Akbar. So it's a very special place. So every time I talk about Nisa homes, I'm talking from my heart, my sisters, and my brothers. I can see some brothers are in here too. Allahu Akbar, assalamu alaikum. But I'm talking from my heart, totally.
Alhamdulillah, and Jazakallah khair for sharing that, Namarek. There was one comment that my dearest Amina auntie put in the chat. She was like, every day we have to think of the underprivileged. I remember my mom teaching us to make dua for all those in need all over the world. So in addition, couple your contribution with funds and with dua for each other, right? So Namarek, are you still on?
Yes, I am.
All right, this is my cue to exit so that you can continue to introduce the next speaker.
Jazakallah khair, Shaheen. All right, you guys, so you've all met an expert MC and now you're meeting me, okay? There's definitely a difference, I'll tell you that now. But please do tell me how you're feeling. Please comment. I am looking at the comments on Facebook. I'd love to see how you all are doing. Fatima, very well, mashallah, thank you, Fatima Razvi. Please comment, let us know how you're feeling. How has the day been so far? I'm just looking at the Facebook comments to see. All right. Okay, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna read some, inshallah. But do let us know how you're doing. Isma, jazakallah khair, you're doing well, alhamdulillah. Do let me know how you're doing, inshallah. Thank you so much. I can't say your name, Fatatuatu. Did I just kill that name? I'm so sorry. Jazakallah khair, sister. Amira, we have to keep praying for the safety of our frontline workers. Yes, Allahu Akbar. Praying for ourselves is one thing, but let's pray for our frontline workers and everyone trying to support, inshallah. All right, I have the privilege of introducing our next speaker. And really, it is quite a privilege to be able to do that. She's somebody that I definitely have been listening to over the years, and someone that I think some of you know. I think she's definitely a fan favorite, I would have to say. Who I am introducing Razia Hamidi. She is passionate about inspiring. I'm so sorry. Yes. She's passionate about inspiring grassroots change in our community. As a community activist, leader, and student of knowledge, Razia gives motivational talks across Canada. Razia has delivered various workshops, lectures, and keynote speeches at conferences and universities. She has made numerous television and radio appearances like CBC and CTV on topics such as human rights and Islamophobia. She's also a professional relationship coach and counselor who guides Muslim couples to build their marriage in love, harmony, and Islamic spirituality. Please join me in welcoming Sister Razia.
Jazakallah khair, Namira. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Want to make sure it's good. So I did get a message saying my internet connection's not stable. So Namira, please do not hesitate to cue in and let me know if I get cut off. Okay, awesome. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad abdika wa nabiyyika wa rasulika nabiyil ummi wa alayhi sahbihi wa sallam. It's an honor to be here with all of you guys today. I want to thank the Being Me team, and I'm really proud, mashallah, that they were able to be so fluid. And the conference got canceled, but they just picked up and went with what's going on, and alhamdulillah still bringing value to all the amazing females that could use that positive message right now. So I'm grateful to be part of this and be with you guys, alhamdulillah. And I was listening to Sister Amira's talk just before me, and subhanallah, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just, inshallah, my talk will complement hers, and a lot of the messages, I guess, kind of pick it up and take it in a different direction, but I think it's very much aligned with that message. And my focus, a lot of the work I do with couples and on relationships and helping coach women is focused around putting our life jacket on. And so this Ramadan, alhamdulillah, we're all afforded the opportunity of having a lot of time at home, either alone, inshallah, moments of solitude, even if you're a mother and you've got children, family, whatever it may be, finding those little moments of opportunity, inshallah. So today, my focus is going to be about putting your life jacket on first so you can help others, right? And that whole principle comes in, if you guys have ever been on a plane, right? The first thing they tell you is put your face mask on in order to help the passenger next to you or whoever's with you. And oftentimes we don't stop and is how we need to first take care of ourselves and fill our vessel. And alhamdulillah, Ramadan is about that revival. And inshallah, my talk is around the idea of building our self-leadership capacity on whatever scale that may be. And I wanted to start off with a beautiful hadith. And this hadith just always hits home for me. It's always that, just really taking yourself there. So oftentimes when we read stories from the Sira, we glaze over it. I want you guys to really imagine yourself there. And so I'm going to go, into a little detail. So this hadith and conversation takes place during the time that the Prophet ﷺ is in Medina, and the Sahaba and the Sahaba and the Prophet are coming back from battle. And it's again, mentally, physically, imagine like the most difficult day you've ever had. Something that was emotionally exhausting, physically exhausting. And I want you to just stop and take yourself there. And by the way, I hope you guys are taking notes, because I'm going to be giving you guys questions and cues to like write down and come back to, inshallah, for yourself. So imagine the most emotionally, physically exhausting day that you've had. So take yourself there. Now, when they would go fight in battle at that time, they would often do it on the outskirts of the city. And so we're talking about maybe a day of travel. For those that live in Canada, North America, the hottest day is still nothing like what the Saudi desert heat is like. You literally could cook an egg outside, right? And so the Sahaba and the Prophet have traveled at least a day to the battlefield, and now they're coming back. And then they've gone through the emotional roller coaster that battle is, right? And like just that heightened fight and flight, like you're at the max. And have gone through that, and they're returning back to Medina after this. I'm literally still dripping in sweat and like from the blood, and carrying the emotional pain as well of like losing some of the Sahaba. And as they're walking back, the Prophet ﷺ says to the companions, he says, we've left the lesser battle, and now we're going to the bigger battle. And the Sahaba just stop and they look at each other, and like they look at the Prophet ﷺ, and they're like, Ya Rasulullah, what do you mean the bigger battle? Like they're like, we just went out there, and we've been there for days in the battle that we've taken part in. What do you mean the bigger battle awaits us? And the Prophet said, it's in here, the jihad al-nafs, right? The most difficult battle that we are constantly in, and the one that matters, and the one that we're accountable for to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is within ourselves. And so, when I was asked to present today in the topic, I wanted to speak of self-leadership. What does that look like? And how do we build that? And what's the roadmap that we can, inshallah, take onto that? Because oftentimes it's something that is not at the forefront. And the reality is, if you're not watering yourself regularly, you're going to burn out, you're going to suffer. And so it doesn't matter the circumstances you're in. Right now, we're in this unique circumstance of dealing with that dunya is very volatile. There's one wave. So right now we're riding the COVID wave, and after this might be something else, right? All of us will deal with different waves in our life, but how do you act in those waves? And it's truly when you build that spiritual fortitude that allows you to, inshallah, ride through that wave, and that wave brings you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not further, right? You don't want to be out in the middle of the shore and you're still just struggling and you don't have those tools. So I'm going to give you guys, inshallah, some tools for your toolbox, and I have them numbered, so you're going to be able to add them. And my prayer and my hope is that, inshallah, as you build this capacity of spiritual fortitude, as we strengthen ourselves and you put your life jacket, all those beautiful things that Amira was talking about social justice, and inshallah about being people of impact and helping humanity, that is a natural progression of strengthening yourself. That's a natural progression of now you being a self-leader, you get to, automatically become a leader. And that's not what we're seeking, right? However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does say in the Quran that the people that he calls his believers, one of their qualities is that when they ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one of their du'as is, oh Allah, make me a leader of the righteous. And the commentators of this ayah say, why? It's because the people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives this beautiful label of my believers, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying it's because they recognize the banner of La ilaha illallah. Like, that gives me goosebumps, right? They recognize that this is a heavy task, a beautiful one of honor. And I can't just carry it from, like, I can't just feed off of it, but I want to share it. And so when we, inshallah, solidify that relationship, we get to naturally, you go into that leadership role because you want to share it with others, right? You want to step up and you got something to offer. So today in this talk, inshallah, your theme and your goal for Ramadan is going to be hopefully, using these tools. I hope that inshallah will be things that you'll continuously come back to. And this is a lifelong process. So let's dive in. First question that I want you guys to, answer within yourselves is, what does self-leadership even mean to you, right? When you think of this, what does that mean to you? And what does it look like? So just write that down. Like I said, a lot of these questions obviously are deeper, but come back to it. And this is like a great activity to do as a family, as a couple, with kids. These are going to bring up some really great discussions. And so self-leadership is really about choosing who you are. It's about choosing what you do, who you become, and it's about leading yourself, right? So when just defining it, so we're all on the same page. And self-leadership is an enabling process whereby a person learns to know him or herself better, and through this better self-understanding is able to steer his or her life better. So when we have self-awareness and we actually understand, alhamdulillah, who we are, it allows us to follow clearly in the direction that Allah has created us for. But if you're oblivious and you don't know your triggers and you don't know, and I'm talking about like the nuance, like the little day-to-day things, right? Knowing how you act when you're hangry, knowing, how you respond to your kids and prepared for the challenges that come. So that's very important. And I'm guessing, a lot of the people watching this, you're probably between the ages of like maybe 18, younger to maybe 50, if we've got some seniors on here. And it's so important to remember that there is a 60 or 70-year-old in you who's counting on you right now to make those good decisions, right? So many of us are not intentional. And I really think making that connection, like there's going to be a 70-year-old me who's like, man, I wish you were more fit. I wish you had read more, because here I am now in my old age and I'm wishing, I can't do sajda, let's say. And it breaks my heart, right? When we see like people struggling and you're like, man, I wish I'd, taken fitness more seriously, or I wish I had read more. And if we devour nothing when we're young, we won't have anything to, celebrate when we're older. So this is our prime opportunity, alhamdulillah, to sow those seeds, inshallah. You'll see an ongoing nature theme in my talk. I love nature. That's where like I feel centered and I get to connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So just kind of remembering that we lay the foundation, inshallah, for ourselves right now. And every Ramadan, alhamdulillah, inshallah, we're alive to see this Ramadan, is an opportunity to strengthen that foundation and keep coming back to it, right? And it's so important to understand that our intention comes back to obviously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and our intention comes back to being people of effectiveness, right? People of impact and effectiveness. And the product of being impactful is something that true leaders, and as a, inshallah, being, self-leader is what we desire. And again, it's one of those things that, our tradition has, where like that beautiful, I believe it's a hadith where it says, when Allah subhanahu loves a person, He tells the angels to love them. And then the people, and then, Allah subhanahu tells the people on earth to love them. When you start that process of growth, inshallah, and it's baby steps, right? I'm not talking about like drastic changes, guys. It's really improving 1% every day. It's asking yourself, how can I be better today than I was yesterday? What's one thing I can change? And this is, I always come back to this because it's so crucial. One of the tools of shaitan is honestly this mentality of all or nothing. So when I coach, a certain sister, and she's talking about fitness, and so she's like, my dream is I want to run 5 times a day, and I'm like, okay, do you run once a week right now? Or sorry, not 5 times a day. Do you want to run 5 times a week? And so I'm like, do you run once a week right now? She's like, no. I'm like, okay, let's start with that. And she's like, no, but I want to be at that level. I'm like, so you'd rather daydream about running 5 times a week than start doing once a week. And right, so we convince ourselves that if I can't make all these changes, or if I can't be a complete, shift in my fitness or in my eating or in my akhlaq, then why bother? And so that's not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that I love acts that are small and consistent, right? And this is what right now all self-help books talk about. The minute small changes that you make, and they add up drastically. So inshallah, go into this Ramadan mindset, and this revival is small incremental changes. And so my point that I was going to share on this is that when you start this journey of self-growth towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, towards bettering yourself, it inspires and transforms even those around you. If we think about some of the I'm not going to even talk about the Sahaba, more recent history. If you talk about Malcolm X, right? His transformation inspired thousands and millions and continues to. How many, converts, brothers and sisters do we know who took their shahada based on his story? So subhanAllah, when you start to transform, see how you're planting seeds that you don't even realize you're doing just by, inshallah, investing in yourself. So little intro into it. And then let's break it down and get a little more technical. There's 4 pillars for self-leadership. And again, note these down, and you can come back to it and see where you are on that spectrum for each of these pillars. So the 4 pillars for self-leadership, what do you believe in? And I mean, like, get deep, right? Because it's easy to say, yes, I believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but you want to, how does that reflect in the different aspects of your life? And like I said, this is the day-to-day, the moment-to-moment things that you do in your life. 2, knowing who you are, right? So if you know what you believe in, second part is knowing who you are. How does that connect to you? 3rd is what's important to you. And 4th is what are your actual goals, okay? And so when we reflect on what our highest goal is, and ultimately, inshallah, is to seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to worship him as he has, commanded us to. And one of the things that a lot of women and, everyone really struggles with is that when we when there's a gap for us between what we know and how we act. So when we know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala requires of us, when we know what is good and because Allah has told us, but we don't act according to what we know, there's a gap. And that's where anxiety and tension, negativity comes in, and it's easy to get blocked. And a lot of us become, kind of derailed at that point, don't know how to get back on track. So that's really important to keep at the forefront on that journey of self-leadership. So the first tool I'm going to give you for your toolbox, I'm going to give you 5 in total, inshallah. I'm hoping that I'm probably going to skim through a few just to make sure we stay on time. Namira, can you give me like a 10-minute mark? I know you guys will probably do 5 minutes, but 10 minutes too. Right now I don't have 10, right? I'm good. All right. Okay, so the first tool for your toolbox, inshallah, is compass. Where is your compass, right? There's a beautiful story that actually, so there was this ship soon after the Titanic had sunk. This was another big ship that also sank in history. I actually forget the name of it, but it was from the States. And they did an investigation because this ship, there was no reason it should have sank, and a lot of people died. So they did investigation, and basically what the conclusion, why the ship ended up sinking, had, and he always used, was 4 degrees off of north. And this 4 degrees led them to the point where they did end up, having turbulence and hitting icebergs, and it sank. And so subhanAllah, I share that story because how many of us, how many degrees are we off of our north compass? And north obviously being Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So reflecting on where is your compass? And like I said, these are the little day-to-day things. So when we desire and love what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala desires, that compass will always be aligned. And when it's not, that's where that gap comes in that I was talking about. And then, so the compass is also, you know, a metaphor for us to ask ourselves, what are my desires? Because we worship what we love, right? And that's the reality. And so when you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that manifests in everything that you do. And there's a beautiful verse in Surah Al-Furqan, verse 43, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, have you seen the one who takes as his God his own desires? And how many of us, we live in that age, right? Marketing is all about feeding that desire, be it entertainment, be it, you know, material desires, sexual desires, all of it is fed around that. And the believer, alhamdulillah, Ramadan is about keeping those desires in check. And maybe, inshallah, you know, you're not committing sin. Maybe a lot of us, alhamdulillah, it's like the little nuances that we get into that we don't realize. It could be watching Netflix for 5 hours. It could be just wasting time on our phone. You know, I've done a lot of workshops and just talking about the cost that hyper connectedness on our phone comes at. And you guys, we have to be real. It does affect our spirituality. It does affect our connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because it affects our focus and clarity that we can come at our life with. So, you know, it's these little things to be aware of. The Sahaba would say, subhanAllah, when they would hear about, you know, commands coming down that were of what was halal and what was haram, they would say that we even steered away from what was halal because we were so afraid that we might become so comfortable in it that we might, you know, fall into the haram. Like, that's how cautious they were. So when we're talking about that compass, you're constantly asking yourself, like, am I overindulging? So right now, I've been victim of this, right? I'm not above any of what I'm sharing with you guys. This is like self-preaching to me. On YouTube, and there's like all these like indulgent recipes, and now I'm actually at home for a long period of time and I'm like, that would be really cool to try in this. And you know, it's all like gluttony, it's like super unhealthy food, so it's catching myself. So it's something that, you know, it's not haram for me to make those things. However, I know it's going to affect me. It's probably going to you know, make me really sleepy after because it's like high in sugar and this and that. And so it's in these things that I'm saying, catch yourself and see, is this going to take my compass closer or further away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And some of the questions you can ask yourself in this is, what does it mean to submit to Allah, right? What does it mean to in your day-to-day, in your relationships? What does it mean to follow his commands? What does it mean to align your love and your longing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Like, really get deep and real with yourself about that, because no one can answer these questions but you, right? Like, this is what's beautiful about this journey, that it's really between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do you desire what Allah desires, to crave a world where you're truly attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and in everything you remember him? And if you're serious about being a Muslim and submitting to Allah, you drink up everything that you can that brings you to that, right? So inshallah, answer those questions and ask, am I drinking up the opportunities that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving me, or am I constantly running away from it, right? And like I said, a real example is, there's so many online things happening right now. Even if you just did a family halakha, whatever opportunities you are, or are you constantly like, okay, it's evening time, it's time for Netflix, and I'm going to be on here for 3 hours, or I'm going to scroll through my phone for, you know, another 2, and maybe on Instagram, right? Like, it's getting real and being like, okay, am I really taking the opportunities that was like, do I pull myself towards it, or am I literally dragging myself to these things? So that was tool number 1. Second tool to add to your toolbox, inshallah, for self-leadership, is what feeds your roots. What feeds your roots? And the inspiration for this was one of my favorite verses from Surah Ibrahim, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, have you not considered how Allah presents an example, making a good work like a good tree, whose root is firmly fixed and its branches high in the sky. It produces its fruit all the time by permission of its Lord, and Allah presents examples for the people that perhaps they will be reminded. This is such a beautiful parable. You should definitely read these verses. It's verse 24 to 25 in Surah Ibrahim. And basically, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala equates the believer as this tree. And so the believer, you know, you're feeding your roots with what? With La ilaha illallah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that this tree is so deeply rooted because of this watering, of this constant connection and submission, right? So the more that you submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the day-to-day, in the moment to moment to moment, those roots get deeper. And what happens when those roots get deeper? Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the branches are so high in the sky. So this isn't like the tree that you can just go and pick the fruits from, but it's something that's so high in the sky that nothing can benefit from it. Jazakallah khair. And it's producing fruits. So you're constantly giving goodness. You're producing fruit and benefit for all of those around you, and obviously for yourself as well. And Allah is saying He's presenting this example. So really asking, asking yourself that if my heart dries up, right? So if I'm not feeding it with this water of submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's going to dry up. And what am I going to do? And oftentimes we wait till it's too late, or we stay stuck in like, I'm just not feeling it. Like I want to make dua, I want to pray. I'm not sure why, like my relationship with Allah is uneasy. And if you just pause and reflect, well, what am I watering myself with? Am I watering myself with social media? Am I watering myself with toxic relationships? Am I watering myself with endless, mindless, empty entertainment? Am I watering myself with food, right? And so when you're watering, so Allah is giving us that beautiful example here. And there's a quote that I love where it says, a sick person who says, I will not treat my illness. A sick person says, I will not treat my illness till I know the complete cure for everything. He says, the greatest struggle is against yourself, and that is the true strength. So when you say like, oh, until I know everything that's plaguing me, I won't deal with it. This is truly someone who is confused and lost. Because if you can start eradicating even a small portion, right? If you have one area of your life you're struggling with and you start to change it, inshallah, shift your perspective, your habits, and become closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that one area, it will affect other aspects of your life. This is a promise from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it's beautiful because so many secular self-help books, you guys, also talk about this. When you practice willpower in one area, it affects the other areas of your life as well. I'm going to rush through the last three because I want to make sure I cover them. So number 3, the tool I want to give you was, do you experience a gap between what you know and what you do, right? So I talked about that in the intro. So check yourself, right? Is there a gap between what I know? I know right now that this is going to affect me. I'm not in a good place. And if I go on my Facebook right now, I'm going to feel really insecure because I know I'm going to see people doing this, and I don't feel good about myself, right? So is there a gap? And you need to have that self-awareness. Because if you're capable of, inshallah, acting as we should know, we always know better, and it's about doing better, right? And constantly saying that to yourself. So it's identifying your blind spots. That's number 3. That's the tool, right? So identify your gaps. Number 4, we become what we think. So crucial, especially as women, subhanAllah. And here's this really scary stat, guys. This is like facts, backed by research. We have 60,000 thoughts a day. Okay, subhanAllah, 60,000 thoughts. 95% are the same thoughts as yesterday, and 80% are negative. Okay, so to break down the math for you, that's basically 45,000 negative thoughts a day. That's your own, when we say the part of the daily adhkar, like saying the morning du'as in the morning that the Prophet ﷺ would say was Surah Al-Falaq and Surah Nas, and oh Allah, protect me even from my own evil whisperings and then the whisperings of shaitan. So 45,000 negative thoughts that you're dealing with constantly, and that's why self-leadership is so important, controlling your thoughts, knowing the root of where those thoughts are coming from, inshallah, and by being more mindful, which was in some of the earlier sessions that the speakers talked about, get in check, get in tune with yourself. Where are those negative thoughts coming from? Why am I feeling that way? And then inshallah, seeking strength from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's tool number 4. We become what we think. So it's so crucial to be aware of those thoughts. And learned helplessness is part of that, guys. So dangerous. And that's, again, a tool of shaitan. Just, feeling like I'm the victim, I can't do anything, and you stay there in that pain. I shared this quote yesterday on my Facebook page. Pain is a stage, it's not a destination. And many of us make it. The story of Prophet Yusuf, beautiful example. So focus on that. All right, last one, inshallah, is number 5. And this is the best self-diary. So I want to give you guys, for the last step, I want to give you something actual tangible that you can take away and that you can work on in this Ramadan. So what is the best self-diary? And it's like a really cool tool in positive psychology that they use. And basically, it's cultivating your self-awareness and building optimism, right? Because alhamdulillah, the believer is always hopeful. We know that You know, in the beautiful hadith or the Prophet ﷺ said, how beautiful is the affair of the believer where everything for him is good, right? So optimism is very much part of our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I want you to actually imagine your best self in 30 years from now, in 2 years from now, in 6 months from now, right? So imagine your best self, because the reality is if you don't even know what the best version of yourself looks like, how are you ever going to reach there, right? What is that? What do you want that person to be? And inshallah, write that down in detail, and then, you know, manifest it through by number one, making dua for it, right? So now that you know, you're like, that's the person inshallah I want to be, you start making dua for it. You start making those small 1% changes every day that we talked about. And by inshallah having that clarity, it makes it so easy. And so the final thing I want to leave you guys with, again, inspiration from the Quran and why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about this process of self-leadership and why it's so important. In Surah Al-Shams, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the first verses, and so beautiful and so powerful. I'm just going to read it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim, Surah Shams, Allah says, by the sun and his splendor, by the moon as she follows him, by the day as it shows up, the sun's glory, by the night as it conceals it, by the firmament and its wonderful structure, by the earth and its wide expanse, by the soul and the proportion and order given to it, and its enlightenment as to its wrong and its right. So basically the first 11 verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is swearing oaths. 11 oaths, you guys. And how does Allah answer those oaths? What is he bringing your attention to? That's how powerful it is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, and the answer to these 11 verses and oaths is, truly he succeeds that purifies himself, and he fails who corrupts it. So purification and this idea of self-leadership, that's what it's about. It's constantly purifying yourself so then you can beautify it with the submission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is so crucial. This has to be a daily practice. It has to be something that we constantly come back to, because our fitrah, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us for, longs for this. There's a reason why when we hear the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you're in these beautiful gatherings, you feel so at peace because your heart is like, this is exactly what I need. This is the watering that I need. And so it's so important that we understand that the true strong person, and you know, the prophets have said that the strong believer is more beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than the weak believer, but in both are good, right? And the strong believer is not the muscular one, right? It's the person who has spiritual, emotional, we're able to feed others and create ripples that turn into waves. So I'll end off with that. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika ashhadu la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah. Jazakallah khair. Razia, I'm not sure if others can hear you. Oh, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Jazakallah khair. That was amazing. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. I think you've given so many gems that people just kept writing and writing. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. It was, I think just the way that you started was so powerful. And you know, subhanAllah, we talk about leadership, but you brought it back to us. It's self-leadership, right? It starts with you. So jazakallah khair for that. Thank you so much for joining us today. And inshallah, we always have you be part of the Being Me team. It's been
jazakallah khair for having me.
Anytime. Jazakallah khair. I really would like to go through some of the amazing gems from this talk, everybody, mashallah. I've been reading some of your comments. Remember, comment, because there is going to be a draw later on. So please do comment and let us know what are some of the gems that you got from Razia's lecture. It was absolutely amazing, mashallah. I could imagine why she's such an amazing coach, and she's spoken about very highly. So Aliza Khan, she mentioned all 4 pillars of the of self-leadership in the comment sections. Did a really good job with that. I'm gonna say this name wrong and I apologize. Snigda, she said information equals knowledge, equals action, equals goal, equals leadership. Allahu Akbar, mashallah. What a beautiful way of summarizing the points from the talk here. And then Rehabs, yeah, I think me and you were blown away by the same idea of 20 to 30 years from now, your 60-year-old self is going to be like, sister, I wish you exercised a little bit more. You know, you put that chocolate bar down. Like, subhanAllah, you don't think about that. We just live in the moment. We forget. There's so many more moments. Allahu Akbar. So jazakallah khair for that. That was absolutely amazing. I have my wonderful Being Me team also being blown away by some of the comments here. mashallah, Fati Tatu. Put your face mask before you help the person next to you. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Bilqis said, time well spent is the most important thing at any time. Allahu Akbar as well, mashallah. You guys keep your comments coming. Everybody's reading them. Layla, yes, sister, can't wait to start my diary on where I see myself and then work on it. Beautiful, Layla, mashallah. We have some goals starting already. Amazing, amazing, mashallah. Please share what you're learning. It's going to encourage other people. And don't forget hashtag, okay? My daughter actually, she came up with this so that I could remind you guys. Hashtag being me 2020, okay? All right. How are you guys feeling? How are things going? Riham, the importance of working effectively when it comes to leadership. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. So true. And such a, subhanAllah, sometimes we